Welcome back to Inspire Great Health. Today we're going to be talking about mental health, and I have Natalie and Ashlee with me today. How are you ladies doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. Happy to have you back. So today we're going to be talking about mental health. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves or reintroduce yourselves, since you've been guests on my podcast before, and just talk about what you do here and how you help the community with their mental health.
I'll let you go first.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Natalie, Director of Social Work for Inpatient Behavioral Health Services, and so I oversee our inpatient case management team and then our emergency room clinicians that assess for those acute psychiatric crises that come into the emergency room.
And my name is Ashlee, and I'm the Director of Outpatient Behavioral Health. And so really what I'm in charge of is the therapists who see individuals for therapy, family therapy, couples therapy, group therapy as well. And then we also have psychiatrists as well who prescribe medication for mental health.
So we're going to start at the top. What is your definition of mental health?
I think mental health for me is, we all have mental health. It's just something everyone has, right? And so some days it's good, some days it's bad. I really love this great quote. I listened to a book where it said, being happy is a skill. And that's how I think about mental health. Sometimes we have to work at it, and some days it's really hard to work at it. And some days it's easier. So mental health is really just making sure you're taking care of yourself and that you feel good, not just physically. It's about feeling good emotionally and experiencing all those really positive emotions as well as the negative ones too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think reiterating that, I always say to my staff, like, if you have a brain, you have mental health. Like, we have to take care of ourselves. So definitely, psychological, emotional. I think even how we like show up for each other and ourselves, being true to ourselves and, our support systems and things like that. And having healthy coping skills. But definitely ebbs and flows. That's definitely something. I think there's a maybe misconception that, if you're always kind of on and taking care of your mental health, that everything will go okay. And so giving ourselves the grace of, our bad days and kind of those uncomfortable feelings and being able just to like overcome them maybe, or sit with them sometimes, because sometimes you just have to.
And just have the grace to recognize, that like, I'm not always going to feel great. And I think that's mental health. It's just being aware of how you feel and recognizing I'm not always going to feel great, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
So
It's okay not to be okay.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And that's hard, I think, even as clinicians for us to swallow. I think coming into this field, it's like, I think you think if we do all the right things and offer people all the right resources, that they're going to be 100% all the time. And obviously, as human nature shows us, like, there's bad days, there's, you feel off. I think we discount sometimes how much our physical self contributes to our mental health. If you have pain, if you're not feeling it some days, as you get older, your mental health can change.
Yes.
With life changes, lifestyle, everything, so.
What are some signs that someone might be struggling with their mental health, and how can we help them?
I think when we act out of like the norm, or like we use a lot of the term like baseline. Like, I think when you start to notice, your people kind of acting differently, or even the way that we talk to each other. I think one thing that's come more profound to me in the last few years is even just reframing how we like speak about ourselves and how we talk about things. Like, not putting, I think words are powerful, and even just putting blame on ourselves can be pretty impactful to our mental health. So always giving ourselves the grace of, how we even talk to ourselves or to each other.
And listen to see if that changes too. Because sometimes we can be really positive with ourselves, and the next thing you know, you're really like in the negative thoughts. And so I think that's a indicator that you're not feeling the best, is if your negative voice, we all have that, is really, really strong. And it's just like kind of really beating you up. Yeah. I think of too, when I think of like signs, is I always tell people, one of the first things I'll hear a lot is people will say, I love to read, but I have not been able to focus on reading. So things that they love that feel simple tend to go out the window, and they lose interest in those things. Like, I normally love to hike, but it doesn't feel as joyful. Or I normally enjoy this, but I can't focus or be present, or I don't feel any joy when I do it. So they just stop doing it because they are like, well, it doesn't feel good anymore. And so for me, that's always a very big indicator that maybe something's going on. If the things that normally bring them happiness or just peace give them nothing, they just don't feel anything from it. So that's usually kind of the first sign I look for, of like, oh, you can't read, it doesn't feel as good anymore. So looking for just those little things in their day-to-day that have changed. Maybe they're still going to work, maybe they're still showering, maybe they're still meeting with family, but things just don't feel as good as maybe they used to feel.
And what are some steps we can take to intervene and help that person with their mental health when we see them struggling?
I think just even starting a conversation. Like even with our patients, when we see them, I'll ask them like, well, are you doing those things? And, like, no, I don't have time anymore. It's just not fun anymore. And it's like, okay, well, let's, well, why? Or like, what's changed? Or, what do you think? Because obviously our lives can be chaotic and fast. We're definitely very fast-paced people in our culture. And so it's, I mean, it's asking the question, like, have you taken the time to try to incorporate those things? But just talking to our people about, I've noticed this. Or sometimes I think when we get feedback, we don't realize like that has changed for us. And so when someone even else just kind of brings it up, it's like, oh, you're right. Like I haven't been doing that. And why? It can just kind of spark that conversation within yourself of like, well, what's going on with me?
And I think even just being brave enough to share that you've experienced that too. Like I think sometimes I try to do that with my patients where I'm like, I felt that way too, or I'm feeling off too, or man, I don't know what's going on, but I don't feel great. And sometimes even you just being brave enough to kind of put it out there that you don't feel awesome. Maybe they don't share with you that they don't, but being like, oh, I'm not the only one, and like, just kind of being willing to be like, hey, let's go do this, or let's try, and not giving up on them because maybe they're saying I don't want to go, but just being that friend and recognizing I still want to make sure they know that I'm here if they want to go do those things to help them through that. But just being brave enough to just share, hey, I get it, I've been there. I think that opens the conversation for a lot of people.
That does, yeah. And I know that, because that's like, I think one of the misconceptions, or like, I think you feel alone when you're kind of, in the thick of it or kind of going through it. It sometimes feels like no one understands, or that they're the only one dealing with that. And so it is helpful.
Yeah.
And we do have some like peer specialists that we work with that the theory behind that is like it's someone who's been there, done that. And so they talk to our patients too of like, yeah, I've been there, that's happened, I've had those thoughts and feelings before or struggled with those issues before. So
normalizing it.
Yeah.
Very much normalizing it.
Yeah, that makes it helpful.
Now, following up to that question, I recognize that it's hard for people to ask for help. Why do you think that is?
I think it can be guilt, shame, or even like embarrassment. And just, it can be vulnerable to have to talk about, those dark parts of ourselves or things that come up. And so, I think, and even just, I see a lot of guilt sometimes. Like, we want to be our best selves all the time. And so when we're off, it can be uncomfortable for us or just like shameful, like, and I think there's always a level of independence within all of us where like, why can't I just do it on my own? And so I think, it can be a plethora of things, but I think I see like shame, the guilt and shame and even just like the embarrassment of that. Or
I think also there's cultural and family stuff too, right?
Yeah,
if you were raised in a family where you don't talk about that, or no one goes to therapy, you just get over it. Like there's some family and cultural things that play in that. And I think especially, we talked about this the last time we were here, in Wyoming, we have this cowboy up kind of culture, right? Where it's like, we are independent, we are strong, we get through it. And I think there's a lot of shame about that for people of like, I'm going to be different, or I'm going to come across weak, or people are going to see me differently. And the people that I love are going to be like, oh, something's wrong with you. I was thinking about that when I was looking at the questions. I think people are afraid they're going to be broken. They look broken if they ask for help. And so I think there's a lot of just cultural and family and spiritual things that play into that for people as to why it's hard for them to ask for help. So
I'm glad you brought up cultural, because even like gender, even like gender specific things, like we deal a lot with like postpartum depression and things like that. And so, if you're a new mom and you have to take care of your newborn, it's hard for you to be like, well, I need help. Like there's something going on where I need.
Well, and for so long it was called just baby blues, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so like postpartum didn't become defined for a long time. So a lot of women that would go undiagnosed. It was just, oh, that's just part of it. And so they would suffer in silence. And I also think too, like with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, there's actually a male mental health awareness, like for men, because that is another population that just does not come forward a lot.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of people suffer. And so I think awareness of like, that is really hard for men a lot of times to acknowledge that too, specifically. So.
What are some healthy coping mechanisms that folks can do when they start to feel themselves reach a breaking point?
Ooh, good one.
Yeah. I think when I saw that, what I first thought of was like, one thing I've noticed is people are just hesitant to reach out to their supports, or asking for help. Asking for help can be very hard if you've never needed it or known how to. And so, just maybe even starting that conversation of like, I don't think I'm at my best, or, I may need some help, and just kind of reaching out to your support system. And I know
isolate, right?
I say that, and I know that like not everyone, that's a spectrum too of our supports. If you don't have maybe family or friends you can turn to, being able to be, able to reach out to somebody just to ask for help or know where to go, because it can be hard to navigate that. And if you never had to navigate a mental health system, it can be very intimidating, just like the healthcare system. If you never had to navigate that, you feel like you're at the whim of somebody else and not knowing if you can advocate for yourself or...
I always think of just like some simple, basic things I tell people is just start really small, because when you're depressed or not feeling well, big things can feel really, really big. So little things like brushing your teeth and showering daily and maybe putting on your favorite outfit, getting outside for a couple minutes, even if it's just around the block, that has been shown to be really helpful, getting outside and exercising.
Yeah.
People hate this one, but like, believe it or not, like cold or heat therapy can be really helpful. So like a cold shower, if you're really anxious, is a great thing to do. Or in Wyoming, just walking in the cold. And so like anything like that that's comforting or soothing, just kind of trying to find the energy to do it. And it doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be, what's a routine that I can kind of stick to? Like, how do I kind of not fall into that hole? So just following your normal routines, doing things that feel good, but not overwhelming your system too, because then you're not going to do it. So just getting outside, eating food, taking a shower, talking to people, those things can just start
drinking water.
Yeah, just little things that we are all like, we neglect. Those are usually the first things we throw out the window, but just starting really small, because then those other things are going to start feeling easier and better. Journaling, I know people hate that, but journaling is just a great way to process stuff. I always encourage journaling, because it's just a way so you don't feel as alone and you can get it out of your system. So.
Yeah, and give yourself those wins. Like, even if that one day, okay, I got up, I showered, I got ready.
Positive,
that's
awesome.
A win. Yeah, take it. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's important. We don't give ourselves enough grace, I think, or even like our own positive reinforcement. And so it's like just reframing that self-talk of like, at least I did this.
Yep.
That's done. And tomorrow maybe I'll go a little further.
And rewarding
but if I can't,
yourself.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, reward yourself, even if it felt like something so little, like I should be able to shower. Well, reward yourself. Do something awesome for yourself because you did that. That's how your brain starts kind of feeling and getting motivated. But like, reward yourself too for those little things that feel really small. So.
Yeah.
One of my friends says, you shouldn't should on yourself.
Yes.
And I love that saying.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And when you're not feeling well, we do that all the time. I should be okay. I should be able to handle this. I should be able to shower without making this difficult. And we need to be kind to ourselves and celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
I would echo that sentiment. Yes. Be kinder to yourself.
Yes. 100%.
And to each other.
Yes. Yes, that's also a big one.
Yeah.
Now, what are some misconceptions about therapy for someone who is scared to go to therapy and they've never been to therapy? What are some myths that you would like to bust?
I think like how I mentioned earlier, just even from my perspective of like thinking that therapy is going to be like the end all, like I'm going to go to therapy and then I'm going to be great and things are going to go amazing and all that's going to be perfect. Because I mean, I think to some extent, a lot of us, have like that, we want perfectionism, you're kind of seeking that. But, therapy is definitely like a starting point and definitely it's so helpful and beneficial. But a lot of it definitely has to come from ourselves, so the work that we're going to do and continue doing. And so kind of what you're going to take from that is super important. But and like I said, like you're not going to be at 100% just because you went to therapy and you got everything kind of that you think taken care of, because life's going to happen. So knowing like, do I need to go back to therapy, or knowing like your threshold on what you're dealing with, I think is important.
Yeah, and along those lines, I always tell people that my job as a therapist is to make you your own therapist. Because a lot of people assume that they have to be in therapy forever if they go to therapy. Yeah. And I'm always viewing it as, especially me and my staff, we view it as we want to help people feel the best they can and then give them the tools to be able to handle those things without us. Because we never want someone to be dependent. And that misconception of, man, I'm going to have to be in therapy for 10 years, can't afford it. It really should be up to whatever that person wants. So if you want to get in therapy, learn some stuff, it doesn't have to be forever. And so really helping you get to the place where you can handle some of these things in the future for yourself. And so a couple misconceptions I think about is I think people assume we're going to force something on you. You're going to force medication, you're going to force me to do weekly or bi-weekly therapy. And really we try to drive it by the person's goals. Like if you come in and tell me I can only be in here every other week, I'll be like, okay, let's figure this out. If they come in and say, hey, this is the parameters of things I'm working in, my job as a therapist is to help try to reach you there. I'm never going to force medication if someone doesn't want it. There's so many different alternatives for for mental health now, like TMS or ACT or therapy, that medication isn't always what it has to be. And so really trying to meet the patient where they're at. I also tell my clients this too, is that like, you're not stuck with the first person you walk in the door with. So if you walk in and you are not feeling that person, you can change. And we always give people that privilege of like, if I'm not the right person for you, I will help you find the right person. And so also being aware, like, you really should find the person you feel good about. And there's nothing wrong with changing or saying, hey, you're not right for me. So you're not just stuck with the first person you walk in the door with. So I think a lot of people assume, if I hate them, I'm going to hate it, I'm going to quit. Shop around until you find the person that feels right for you, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and that's, I always tell people that, find the right person. It's going to be, because that's going to be the person you're going to be vulnerable with and open up to. And I think one more misconception too is like, they think that, or people think we're going to either give them the right answer or the right advice and make it all better. And we're more like a vessel to help, you be your best self. And like Ashlee said, like, find those coping skills and ways to be able to eventually work around those things yourself.
I also think people are afraid there's going to be some judgment, that like someone's going to walk into a therapy office and be like, oh my gosh, what are you here for? And really, we don't view patients that way. We look at patients as like, how can we help you feel your best? And so there is no judgment. And I think that's a fear too, that there's judgment. People are judging them wherever, and that's not something that goes on. So.
Yeah, everyone has their own story, and that's something in our field you have to be very aware of. Is like, we all come from different backgrounds, raised differently, so we're very aware that like, you have your own story, we're going to meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
What is a message that you would like to send to someone right now who is struggling mentally?
You're not alone. There's a lot of people, especially this time of year in Wyoming, is really hard.
Yeah.
So you're not alone. And just because you think that a certain person who looks like they're struggling looks differently than you, I promise you there's someone who looks a lot like you, who shares the same background and same history, that's going through the same thing. And so being aware that there's no shame and that it is very normal to feel this way. I always think of like a major depressive disorder that's defined by the DSM is only 2 weeks. So everyone, if you think about it, has had a depressive episode, because most of us have felt crappy for longer than 2 weeks. And so just really normalizing and recognizing you're not alone in struggling, and it's perfectly normal, and everyone goes through it, or it will at least go through something. So
yeah, I think that's really important, is you're not alone. And I think that it's intimidating to think of you having a mental health diagnosis, but that doesn't mean it's going to enable you from, getting where you want to be or get your needs met. And it's not like it's a crippling thing. It's not going to take away from your quality of life. You can be very successful and do what you want to do, even if you have to get some help for your mental health. But then also too, I always like to add, like, just, look out for yourself, and look, that kindness will then transfer to others as well. And like we talked about with even just the way we talk to ourselves, I think that's really important. But then how you talk to others also, like how are you communicating, how are you showing up for yourself and other people as well.
You can be humble and still be kind to yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
100%. I think that's a huge misconception.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there, to use your services at BHS or behavioral health services, does someone need a referral?
No, so they can call, and what we do is we put them on a list, and the reason they go on the list is we're trying to match the right therapist with them. So we kind of look at what they're looking for, we kind of get an idea, and we try to match them with the perfect therapist. And so we used to make it where we would just schedule them immediately on a therapist schedule, but again, we wouldn't match them correctly. So we're really trying to make sure people get with the right therapist from the get-go. We try to tell people usually it's about a week before we look at their stuff, what they're looking for, we find the therapist, and then we'll call and schedule them. So no referral, they can call, they can put themselves on the list. We also have a bunch of different things, like we have child and adolescent therapy, we have couples or family, we're doing groups for people who maybe need a little bit more support as well, we're doing parenting groups. So there's a lot of stuff there, and especially in the community, I think we're trying to grow. But yeah, they can just call and get on a list, and we will meet with them and figure out what's the best thing for them. So
yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I just think May is always a great month of the mental health awareness. We really celebrate it in our office. We buy pins, we draw awareness to it, we try to just kind of talk more about it, but I just think it's not a bad thing. I think of it more a celebration of celebrating that people are trying to heal and feel better. And so I just really want to reiterate what Natalie said, that there's no shame. And we hope that we get to a place where that stigma is broken, where it is a bigger conversation and people are seeking out the help they need. And May is a great time to just really start talking to people about mental health and how to be the best version of ourselves. So
yeah. Every month should be mental health awareness month. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, thank you both for joining me and just having this conversation. Like you said, starting the conversation is the hardest part. So hopefully this can help somebody, just seeing that it's not as intimidating as it seems.
Thank you. We're happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah,
Of
thank
course.
you.
Be sure to get the help you need. People are there for you. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.